Well, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to the second Flood Recovery Updates and Connections Zoom call. We've got an exciting agenda ahead of us today, but before we do that, I just wanted to introduce myself. I am Emily Schaefer, and I'm the Director of Development for the Midland Area Community Foundation, and we are just honored to have you all here. Wanted to just go through a couple of housekeeping points before we get started. As I said, we've got a full agenda, and we look forward to conversations with some of our FEMA reps that are here in Midland. But before we do that, so just FYI, you probably already saw there's a little red highlight saying that this is being recorded. So this is your time to jump out if you don't want to be recorded, but we are recording it, and we will post this on YouTube in the next couple of days, probably early next week. And we did have a call last week or 2 weeks ago, actually, where we gave a broad overview of just what's happened so far since the flood hit and the work that's been done. And then that was actually posted on the Community Foundation page, and it'll be on the reliefmidland.org page as well. So feel free to check that out. It gives a nice, like I said, broad overview of the work that's been done so far. And we also got more details around how case management is working, and Nancy Money presented about that. So you're more than welcome to check that out. And then this will be recorded too. We encourage you to share this with your friends and neighbors and colleagues so that they can have this information as well. So housekeeping notes, I have muted everyone, but you can unmute yourself. We do have a question at the end that we would love your participation in. And then for questions that come up, I've kept the chat open so you can actually ask the question in the chat room or in the chat function. If you go to the bottom of the screen, there's if you click participants, then there's a chat functionality or a chat function that comes on the bottom of your menu if you're not familiar with it. Or you can just directly send them to myself, and I will share them with our FEMA reps and folks that can help answer the questions. If by chance we run out of time and we can't get all of the questions answered, I will make sure and get those to the appropriate folks so that we can follow up with you. And yeah, like I said, you can unmute yourself if you do have a question, if there's a pause, or you can share it in the chat with all or with me individually. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alicia Christie from our team at the Community Foundation. Alicia is our Director of Community Impact, and she's also one of the co-chairs for the Long-Term Flood Recovery Financial Resource Deployment Group. So Alicia, why don't you tell us what we have in front of us here today?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming and sharing in an hour of connections and communication with us. This week, we are really excited because we have some FEMA experts on the line, so no pressure to the FEMA humans here, but I'm really excited to be able to introduce each of you and the spaces that you support because they're all different within the FEMA world. And I think even for myself, I learn something every time I am in conversation about FEMA and those types of things. But before we get there, I just wanted to kind of, I guess, reiterate the reason in which we started these connections and meetings. And really it is about everybody coming together and being in community with one another to be able to hear and learn and communicate with one another. So I know Emily mentioned it just about how the questions and answers are working, but I think it's just important to reiterate, we really mean that these meetings are meant to be of a benefit to our community. So please, if you feel like you have a question, nothing is silly, nothing is repeat. We want to be able to answer in real time things that people have. And so just to give a quick update before we get into our FEMA Spotlight presenters today, just in regards to our community and specifically the long-term recovery group. I know that Sharon last week spent a bit of time introducing what that concept looked like to this call and making sure that people hear that the flood recovery efforts are not being bared by one organization or one facet of the community. Really, long-term recovery is a collaboration and a partnership of many organizations, nonprofits, that all come together to identify and within the spirit of long-term recovery for people who have been affected by the flood and for our community as a whole. And so within our long-term recovery group, we do have 6 subcommittees. And I know that Emily alluded to that. And just, this is the graphic that was shared at this the most recent Community Connections call. And so these 6 groups are all subcommittees of the larger long-term recovery group model. And so as Emily mentioned, I have the opportunity to co-chair the Financial Support Committee with Beth, who is also on the call here. And we also have a few of our steering committee members here on the call. And ultimately, this group, while it looks really beautiful in this graphic, is a compilation of several people coming together who have heart and energy around long-term flood recovery. And so just at this most recent long-term recovery group call that we had, we were all naming that while it is chaotic, it is messy, we are, continually asking new questions, there is this sense that the partnerships and connections between the subcommittees and within the long-term recovery group is really starting to settle as we move into the full long-term recovery space. But without putting anybody too on the spot, I think I saw Holly and Nancy on the call, and they both are critical key components of the long-term recovery group and the steering committee. And so I wonder if either of you have any updates that you'd like to share.
Hi, it's Holly. I think great job, Alicia. Honestly, it is really, truly a collaboration. And if you think about recovery efforts, it really is how do we leverage all of our strengths and all of the generous contributions in our community, both dollar-wise and in-kind donations and volunteer. And so if you look at the 6 quadrants really don't really accurately reflect the amount of coordination that takes place in order for us to really be able to impact as many people as possible. One of the strategies that we were very intentional from day one is that we first have to work with our partners at FEMA and the state to leverage the amazing, you're gonna hear some great statistics about the impact taking place in our community because of that. Those are dollars that aren't being spent locally, invested locally, so that our resources here can be leveraged for the biggest impact in our community.
Thanks, Holly. I appreciate it. Oh, hey, Nancy.
Hi. I didn't think I was going to have to talk this week since I had to last week. I'll just reiterate what Holly said, but the other thing that I want to add is how wonderful and blessed our community has been to have the FEMA folks that we have working in this community. They've been a huge asset, not only to the homeowners, but also to our case managers and our long-term recovery groups. They're accessible, and not only are they wonderful people, but they're also extremely knowledgeable in the work that they do. So thank you.
I appreciate both of those impromptu updates. I know I didn't let you know beforehand, but I just think it's great for people to see the real partnership and collaboration that is required through all of this and needs to happen. So, alrighty, getting into why all of you are here. Really, this week our spotlight content surrounds FEMA. And as many of you have likely heard, we were working under a very tight deadline for FEMA application and those types of things. And I'm sure Dan and Kimberly and Judith will share a little bit of recent changes that have taken place in regards to timeline of FEMA and all of that. But the content that they come to share is just as important, even with an adjusted timeline of things. So My understanding is that Dan Schulman will be the main presenter from FEMA today, but he does have two of his colleagues with him. So Judith, she is a FEMA voluntary agency liaison, or as many of you have heard, often a VAL within the community and supporting the work of our community as we are in this long-term recovery effort. And just a high-level explanation of that VAL, the voluntary agency liaison has a mission to establish, foster, and maintain relationships. They're maintaining the relationships among the government, voluntary, faith-based, and community partners. And essentially, they're looking to strengthen capabilities and support the delivery of inclusive, equitable service by empowering communities to address disaster-related unmet needs. And then Kimberly is also on the call, and she is part of the FEMA Individuals and Households program. And I don't have a pre-written mission or overview, but I'm sure Kimberly can provide that. And ultimately, her team and department is really working with individuals and families that are applying for FEMA support through the devastation. But Dan, he comes to us and he serves as the Assistant External Affairs Officer for Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs. In his current role, he works with FEMA elected stakeholders and the general public to keep them informed about disaster programs and operations, as well as respond to inquiries. And so as a member of the External Affairs team, he also serves as an agency spokesperson within the media, and he is a speaker at various community events. He has been with FEMA since just after Hurricane Katrina, and so has a lot of knowledge and experience in the role that he is in. Prior to coming to FEMA, he spent 6 years on Capitol Hill conducting oversight of FEMA and its programs. And I think one of the coolest parts about Dan is that he is a local to our community in some sense. He is from the Flint, Michigan area, and so has a working knowledge of the community and our state. So without further ado and just rambling, I'm going to pass it over to Dan and the FEMA team.
Thanks, Alicia. And just for one point of clarification, not the Flint area. I'm born and raised in the city of Flint, graduated from Flint Central High School, came up to Midland a number of times to compete against Midland High School, Midland Dow, in various sporting events. So yes, I am very familiar with the area and have spent a lot of time in that part of the state, but also spent a lot of the summer up north, as many Michiganders do. So thanks for that introduction. And yes, you mentioned that Kimberly and Judith are on the line to help keep me in line and make sure they keep me honest about what I'm saying. So I welcome them to let me know if I make a mistake. As you mentioned, the president declared a disaster in Midland. I've spoken with many of the people on the phone today or on the video call today. It's nice to see some familiar faces. So apologize if some of the things that I'm repeating sound repetitive. But it really bears repeating the importance of a number of these points. We've got a number of specific issues come up in this disaster that I will get to, specifically around the area of wells, registrations, or document drop-off centers. I'm going to share my screen in just a minute with some information. I'll pass that over to Alicia and Emily. They can certainly share it with everyone that's on the call today or anyone that asks for that information. But as Alicia alluded to, the big news of today is that yesterday we extended the registration deadline to September 30th. So rather than having just a few more days to register, people will have till the end of the month. But of course, we don't want anyone to wait. FEMA has already been very successful in providing assistance. And I got to figure out this, sharing my screen here real quick so I can give you that a different view of that information. So we really do want people to get registered. That is the first and most important way for people to access assistance from FEMA and the Small Business Administration. And we've already seen a lot of success in that area. On disaster assistance, as of the end of the day yesterday, FEMA and the Small Business Administration combined have provided more than $48 million in disaster assistance to people that were affected by the flooding from May. But in addition to the disaster assistance provided from FEMA and the SBA, Our National Flood Insurance Program has also paid out more than $26.5 million in claims to policyholders. So really, combined, we're talking whatever the math is there. It was never my strong suit. More than a lot of money, more than $70 million in assistance out to disaster survivors. And one of the things that people really need to understand is that these programs work together. Like we work with our voluntary agency partners who are really the backbone of the on-the-ground work for what we're doing. Our programs work together and they need to work together well. So I'll talk a little bit more about how that process works. So, but as you can see on the screen, the first step in getting anything from FEMA or SBA is registering. And we've had almost a little more than 1,860 people approved for assistance. We know there's a lot more people out there that have not yet registered. We want to get those people registered. So anyone that has had damage or was disrupted by the flooding, we want to make sure that they get registered with FEMA so we can get that ball rolling. The information on registering is there on the screen. The most convenient way for most people to get registered is to call us on the phone, 1-800-621-3362. That's also for people that use 711 or video relay service. Our TTY number is on the screen. It's 800-462-7585. People can do it from wherever they're located. They don't have to go visit somewhere. They don't need additional technology. They can just give us a call on the phone. If they want to explore one of the other ways to get registered, they can visit the website, disasterassistance.gov. That will allow them to register for FEMA assistance, as well as learn more about the other disaster programs that are available when a disaster has been declared. And lastly, if people want to go really 2020, they can download the FEMA app to their iPhone or Android device. It's available in both of those app stores. They can do it from the convenience of their phone, sitting in their car at the drive-thru or wherever they happen to be, and stay in touch with us that way. It's really important that people know that the Midland County, as well as our other county partners, did a great job during the initial damage assessments to get out and get people, I'm sorry, the frog jumped right in my throat. So the counties did a great job in identifying damage on that preliminary damage assessment process. Unfortunately, one of the downsides of that is there are a lot of people that think that they've already registered for FEMA assistance. And so they're sitting back saying, hey, I gave you my information back in May or early June and no one's called me. So they didn't register with FEMA. It's very simple. If you didn't call FEMA, you didn't visit FEMA's website or go or download the FEMA app, you didn't register for FEMA assistance. You'll know if you register because when you finish the process, we'll give you a 9-digit number that is your disaster registration number. So again, maybe you gave your information to someone that knocked on your door or you called 211. That's not registering with FEMA. If you don't have that 9-digit number, it wasn't FEMA. If you didn't visit our website or call us directly, it wasn't FEMA. So we need you to call us and get registered, go online, download the app. Once somebody gets registered, for many people that register and report damage to their home, they're going to be issued a home damage inspection. Obviously, we're living in the COVID environment. You see a little bit of my basement here, and I see into your homes on the video chat. So just like that, most of our home inspections are going to be virtual. One of our inspectors will call a disaster survivor and talk to them about what their damages were. And so there's a lot of scams out there. We know that that's a concern. We know that that's taking place. So how do you know it's someone that's really FEMA that's calling you? Well, we're going to identify ourselves as being with FEMA, and we're going to offer a portion of your FEMA registration number to begin the validation, and you'll give us the rest to validate that we are who we are and you are who you are. But if somebody isn't sure, they can always give us a call back to that registration number to verify who's calling them. And then our inspector will call them back. And our inspectors are very cooperative that way. If someone says, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, I'm not sure that you are who you say you are, the inspector will say, okay, well, give us a call back to the FEMA number that is all over our website, is all over the internet, and they'll help you make that connection to verify the identity of that inspector. We want people to be comfortable in this process. It's new to us. It's new to people in the Midland area, especially people that went through the floods of 2017. This looks very different. It feels very different. It looks different and feels different for us too. So we're learning a lot of this together. So we want people to be comfortable. So when that inspector does that call, we want people to tell us what's going on in their lives after the disaster, what the damages were to their home, if they had damages to personal property, if they had other newfound expenses that they didn't have before the disaster when they register, and then also when our inspector calls. Based on that virtual inspection, we will issue a determination about someone's eligibility. It's not going to be on the phone with that inspector, but it will be just after that. The inspector is marking all that information down. It gets uploaded into our system. And based on that, we'll do a determination of eligibility. For people that are found to be eligible for disaster assistance, for monetary assistance from FEMA, and you choose direct deposit, that money will be in your bank account in as little as 24 to 48 hours. If you opt for a paper check, and that is certainly an option, it's going to take longer because that's got to get put in the mail and sent to you. In either case, a letter is going to be sent to applicants explaining the amount of the FEMA grant and what it's for. And in those cases where someone is determined ineligible for assistance, it will explain why they've been determined to be ineligible. We want people to stay in touch with us during this process. If something changes or if they need additional assistance, please call us back, visit the website, and let us know what those changes are. More importantly, we want people to stay in touch with us so we know how to keep in touch with you. So if you have to move because wherever you were staying after the flooding is no longer an option, you were staying with family, now you have to stay with someone else, you found a place to rent and that you're going to be staying at, or if you can move back into your primary residence, your pre-disaster residence, we want you to stay in touch with us and let us know where we can find you, whether it's by phone, by email, or where we should send things by US mail. As a part of that eligibility determination process, we may ask you to submit some additional documentation, whether it's utility bills, documents verifying your identity, that you actually lived where you said you lived before the disaster. So there are a number of options for submitting that information. And what we are doing in this disaster that we have never done before in any disaster is utilizing what we call documentation drop-off centers. I'm going to refer to it as a DDC. That is not an approved acronym. It is a documentation drop-off center. We have 3 of them that are still open in the disaster area. And these are places where people can come if they need help submitting their documentation. Survivors do not need to visit a documentation drop-off center. If they can submit their information to us by fax, uploading into our system, or by email, they don't need to come to a documentation drop-off center. I cannot say that, I cannot stress that enough. This is really only for those people who have an issue or have a concern or have a problem uploading information or have a question that they cannot get resolved through one of those other means. Fortunately, survivors can visit any center that's convenient to them. We have 3 in this disaster. We did have ones in Iosco and Aranac. Those have both closed already. So the 3 that are open, the information is on the screen. We have one in Midland at Dow Diamond, in Gladwin at 401 South State Street, and in Saginaw at Holy Spirit Catholic Church on River Road. And again, that information will be made available in the presentation. It's also available on our website if you look for documentation drop-off center. It's an important clarification. We've heard this confusion from people. The centers do not offer COVID-19 testing. All of our staff will be following currently effective COVID-19 safety requirements, including personal protective equipment. We ask that anyone visiting those documentation drop-off centers do the same, to please wear a mask, to stay in your car unless instructed to get out. This weekend is a holiday weekend, as many of you know, so the centers will be closed on Monday in observance of Labor Day, and then all of the centers will close will close permanently at the end of the day on September 8th. We are working with the state to see if we need to continue to extend those centers. Now that we've extended the registration deadline, that has not yet been determined. So we would encourage people that if you need to visit one, please do so before the end of the day on Tuesday. I won't go through all the opening hours for each of them. That information will be provided, or if someone has a question, we can do that in the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. So someone they've registered, they've submitted their documentation, and they've been determined ineligible, or they've been determined eligible and the assistance that FEMA provided wasn't enough. So what do? Well, we want people to keep us informed about what their needs are, and if they need to appeal, to submit an appeal for that application. There are a number of ways to submit an appeal. The instructions for how to do so are in the letter that is sent to people, but those letters are confusing. We know this. We deal with this in disasters across the country. So if you get that letter from FEMA and you don't understand it, call us. Ask us, hey, explain this to me. I don't understand. I had damage. You say I am ineligible. Why? What can I do to fix that? And our processing center staff will be able to work with individuals and explain to them what's going on in their case and what they need to do to address that. Now, submitting that appeal is a formal process, and we will need a letter from the disaster survivor explaining why we should change the determination in their case. But it's a fairly straightforward request in terms of what kinds of information we're going to need from an individual. One of the questions that's come up is we've asked for a contractor's estimate. If you're appealing for damage or an issue with your well, and I'll get to that in more detail, you only need to submit one quote or estimate from a contractor. You don't need multiple quotes. However, if you're having work done in your house, we do encourage people to get multiple quotes as a basic safety measure to prevent fraud and abuse from contractors. But those appeal letters must be submitted no later than 60 days after the determination has been made. And you can do it by mail, by fax, online, or by dropping it off at the documentation drop-off center. And again, if that's not clear in the letter that we've provided, please give us a call and we can explain that process directly to you. So a little bit about appeals. There's a lot more there. And again, people can appeal any determination that FEMA makes, whether it's the amount of assistance, the type of assistance, anything that FEMA does, you can appeal. And we encourage people, if you don't agree with the decision, to make that appeal. Give us a call so we can walk you through what you're going to need to do there. I want to talk about wells a little bit, and this is a big issue in this disaster. Obviously, we saw 2 lakes, 2 dam failures, and 2 lakes that just completely drained. Well, under those lakes is our aquifers and water table that now that the lakes aren't there, the water table has dropped. So we know for hundreds of people, they no longer have access to potable water at their houses. And so wells are a very unique situation for some individuals. So I'll try and make this as clear as I can. If you had access, if you were on well water before the disaster and you can no longer access well water after the disaster, we want you to come call and register with FEMA. It's as simple as that. There is going to be a process that you'll have to follow to receive assistance from FEMA. We can provide assistance to either dig that well deeper, or for the limited people that this applies to, help connect them to municipal water. But we're going to need you to appeal any determination that says that you're not eligible for assistance, because it may be the case that when you called and registered, you didn't have a problem with the well, or we just didn't talk about it during that inspection. So we want people to appeal to the determination of ineligibility, let us know they have a problem with their well, and then we'll work with that individual to identify what we can do to address that now lack of access to potable water. In general, we're going to need some type of verifiable estimate or receipt indicating that it was either physically damaged, collapsed, or no longer producing water, and what was needed to do to address that, whether it is dig deeper, or whatever the solution is. If we have to repair a wellhead, whatever that problem is, we can provide assistance, and we want to make sure that we work with any individual that has that problem on that issue, because that's something that we know is out there from this disaster. Moving on from wells, I talked a little bit about the U.S. Small Business Administration. As a part of the registration process, when we're asking you about what your situation was before the disaster, we do ask about income. So FEMA programs are not income dependent, but we do use that question as an indicator of whether you may be able to manage a U.S. Small Business Administration disaster recovery loan. Those disaster loans are for individuals as well as businesses, and it is an important part of the process. During the registration, you may be referred to the SBA to complete an SBA loan application. That application is a necessary part of the process. So applying for an SBA loan, and again, it's a loan, so it's complicated. But we want you to give us a call back. We can connect you with an SBA representative who will literally go through that application with you and help you fill it out. But if you are referred for an SBA loan, you have to do that loan application. A couple of important things to keep in mind. Number one, it doesn't cost you anything to apply for that loan. It doesn't affect your credit to apply for the loan. You don't have to accept the loan if you're approved for it. But if you are approved for that loan, that's an indicator that you can afford to take that loan. And so that will, if you don't accept the loan, that will foreclose you from other FEMA assistance. But if you are not referred to SBA for a loan because of your income, or the SBA turns you down for a loan, which again does not affect your credit at all, and there's no monetary penalty for that. But if SBA cannot qualify you for a loan, they will refer you back to FEMA for additional grant assistance, what we call our other needs assistance. And that's a lot of the things that SBA would normally cover with their loans. One thing I do want to say, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, FEMA alone is not going to make people whole. And I want to say that again. And it's that FEMA assistance alone is not going to make people whole. Our programs are not a replacement for insurance. They are intended to provide limited essential assistance to restore someone to their pre-disaster dwelling, to make that residence safe, sanitary, and secure, not finished out and everything back the way that it was as if it never happened. Again, FEMA is not an insurance program in that way. We do work with the Small Business Administration to help people along that road to recovery. But again, that financial assistance is not a replacement for insurance. I talked a little bit about the National Flood Insurance Program and the great work that they've already done so far. Unfortunately, for people that were flooded in this event, it's too late to get an NFIP policy for this disaster. It's not too late to get one for the next flood that may occur. So we want people to explore that option. Visit floodsmart.gov to learn more about getting a national flood insurance program, flood insurance policy for the next time that it floods. So I talked a little bit about FEMA and appeals and SBA and flood insurance. A couple of areas I do want to explore also. First of all is disasters are stressful for everybody. They're stressful for people that are survivors, that for their friends and family that are helping to care for them, for the first responders and the people that are helping in the recovery. Help is available for people that need it. There is a disaster distress helpline that is available for individuals that need assistance. That number I will also share after the presentation today, but it's 1-800-985-5990 for voice 711 or video relay service. And that's available 24 hours a day. We also have Spanish translation available. Just need to text Hablamos to 666-746, and I'll share this information in an email to Alicia after. And then for people that unfortunately FEMA cannot provide assistance to, and the SBA can't provide assistance to, and it didn't have insurance, we do rely on our voluntary agency partners who are doing great work. And so people can call 211 to get referrals for additional needs. Or of course, they can always call FEMA and we can provide a referral to them and for them. So with that, I think I'll stop there. I think I've covered most of the topics that I think I need to cover right now. And I'm happy to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat, and happy to take any questions. Looks like I already got one. $48 million for both FEMA and SBA. How much individually for FEMA versus SBA? It's a great question. Give me 1 second to pull back up my notes. The breakdown as of the end of the day yesterday from FEMA was a little more than $21.2 million.
Hey, Dan.
Assistance. Yes.
Your microphone is going in and out a little bit.
Sorry, is that better?
Try again.
How about I just take the headphones off and go that way? Is that better? All right. It's good. It's okay. I don't need the headphones anyways. My kids are at school. So for FEMA assistance, it's a little more than $21 million in FEMA grants. So again, I'll rely on my friends to do the math there. So that's what, about $26 million for SBA and SBA loans. So that answers that question. What else? I know I didn't answer every question in that presentation. I never do.
Please be encouraged just to take yourself off mute and shout out your question. I think the more we can have as best of collaborative discussion, the better. As best you can virtually, of course. I never know how long to let the silence go over a Zoom call, but.
Hi, this is Stan Halpin. I'll jump in here. I don't want to try to solve my problems in the middle of a big group meeting like this, but at the same time, maybe my issue is common and might be instructive for others. So cut me off if you need to. My issue is that I've tried to do the FEMA application. I was rejected because my social security number doesn't match my name or something like that. The official wording was something like, your social security number does not match your identity according to our records. I don't know what records you're using, but they don't match. So after the previous meeting 2 weeks ago, I said, okay, I'll go ahead and try again. I took my social security card, which miraculously was not in the flood. I took that card and a number of other pieces of identification, went to the drop-off center, handed it to the person. They went away. They came back sometime later, said, okay, it's been sent up. So 2 days later, 4 days later, 6 days later, I try to call. They say, oh, your name doesn't match your social security. I try to get online. It says, oh, you can't get online because your name doesn't match your social security. So I tried to just start over again. And the system says, oh, you can't start over again because you've already filed. And so I can't get into my status. I can't file an appeal. I can't upload documents because it won't allow me into the system. But it won't allow me into the system to try to prove that I am who I am. So I don't know how you get out of this loop.
So, and I don't want to get too far into your case. Just to say that we are aware of your case, and I'm very sorry that this is happening. We are an organization of people and technology, and unfortunately, we have to rely on that to solve our issues. I will say that we are aware of your case. We have asked our staff at our National Processing Center to reach out to you directly to work on your case. So you should be getting that call. I can't promise it's going to be today, tomorrow. We are dealing with the hurricanes and those effects. And I'm getting a note here from Judith is on the phone. We'll give you a call after this meeting and work on your case directly, okay?
Okay, thank you, Dan. And the other related question, well, I don't know if it's related or not. As part of the application process, I noticed on your slide earlier, part of the information I must have given was my bank account routing number. All of my application was denied, but yesterday morning I had over $1,000 show up in my bank account labeled from FEMA. So I don't know what's going on with that and how to find out about that.
The person, Judith, is going to give you a call after this, and she'll walk through all of those details with you.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
No worries. I'm getting another question here on the chat from Emily that, can I share the deadlines for appeals? So appeals are a different animal. So the registration deadline is now September 30th, and there is no deadline for appeals. So long as you are actively engaging with us on an issue and your appeals are timely, meaning that you're submitting to them back to us within the time frame indicated in those letters that we're giving you, typically it's 60 days, then those appeals can go on really indefinitely. There are limits to FEMA's programs in terms of how long you can receive assistance. That period is generally 18 months from the date of the disaster, but that's really focused on temporary housing. So there is no drop dead end date for those appeals as long as you are continuing to appeal legitimate issues, and you are not exhausting your appeals on any particular thing. You can only appeal a determination twice. And so once you get that second determination, that I guess now would be a third determination on a specific issue, you can't appeal that one anymore. But in the broad spectrum of FEMA assistance, appeals are essentially unlimited for really an unlimited amount of time. But there are some limits. But we hope that it doesn't end up like that, because we hope that either you will understand why you have been turned down for something and that's a legitimate reason, or we were able to figure out a way to get to yes on whatever your particular issue is. So I hope that answers the question in a very non-specific, non-definitive way. I like doing this, so I can wait all day with silence.
Dan, how do you deal with when you get one set of advisement from one FEMA person, then you come back the next day after filling that out, and then the next person gave something totally different?
We hope that that doesn't happen. And Dave, good to see you again. We hope that that doesn't happen. We know that that will likely happen to some people. It can happen on a variety of issues. On the individual assistance side, it doesn't happen as often as it does on the public assistance side. And for those of you that don't know, public assistance is our program for addressing infrastructure damages and public costs to state, local, and eligible nonprofits from the disaster. And in most cases, those differences of opinion are different evaluations, especially when you get into technical things, technical information with engineers. They just don't agree on something. Two engineers can look at the same problem and come to a completely different conclusion. So we hope that that doesn't happen, and we will work with the applicant, whether that's a disaster survivor or a community, to try and resolve that, that difference. The other side of that is there are also layers at FEMA. And so the first person that comes and visits the site may have one opinion about something and say, well, I think this is clearly, X, and their supervisor or an additional layer of inspection comes and says, well, it's not X, it's actually Y. And again, that's what the appeal process is for. If we're going, not in your favor, then we want you to appeal and provide additional information that that justifies your position for whatever that issue was. So unfortunately, it is going to happen. We are human. Humans have different opinions on things. And the way to do that is to appeal, to stay in touch with us, and to be prepared to be an advocate for yourself and for your own circumstance. I like to tell people that as long as I've been with FEMA, and I've been with FEMA a long time, never take no. Never take no for an answer, because until there's a letter that says, you know, you are not eligible, this is your final appeal, you can still have that conversation with us about whatever that issue was, which is a very broad answer, and I'm certainly happy to get into specifics, or you want to have a specific scenario you want to talk about. Except for the dams, which I can tell you now, we've said from the day one, the dams are not going to be eligible.
Are there any other questions for Dan or even Kimberly or Judith as well? All right, hearing none, and I am not as comfortable as Dan is to sit in that silence. I'm going to move on here. And honestly, it's about that time anyways, as we look to wrap up here within the next few minutes. But I would just like to say a sincere thank you to all three of you for being on this call today. I think if nothing else, again, it just helps for people, for community to hear things in a very streamlined fashion, right? And so what we're hearing today, it might generate more questions for people moving forward, and that is okay. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the Community Foundation, to FEMA, and Unite Away. Just we're all in this together. And so if there's a way that we can help you find questions, or at least point you in the right direction to the questions you might have, we are happy to do that. So we are going to transition into a time where we do just want to keep it light, and we want to make sure that we are focusing on the piece of hope and joy within the reality of a very stressful and chaotic situation within our community. So we would like to open up for just a few people to respond, or everyone if you're feeling inclined. If you would be able to share some sort of flood-related silver lining that you have found over the last, it can be day or several months, just as a community, as a family, as a person, what would be a flood-related silver lining that you can kind of think about in your brain that keeps you on that path of hope and recovery? Please answer so I don't have to sit here.
Oh, I'll jump in again. This is Stan Halpin. Several things. From the beginning, we have had an overwhelming amount of support from people, whether they're church groups walking the neighborhood saying, do you need help? Do you need help? From the media putting out information of the type that Dan was just sharing. It's just been overwhelming, almost to the point of being overwhelmed, but it's a good thing. And, you know, including the home cooked meals that were brought by, because we don't have good cooking facilities because we're flooded. That's been a big help. And the one thing that I was thought to mention last meeting 2 weeks ago, and I forgot, the program between Whirlpool Appliances and the community gave us a chance to get a refrigerator in less than 8 to 12 weeks lead time, and at a nice cost too. But the lead time, just having it the next day in the house and being able to start storing food, that was a big thing, and we greatly appreciate whoever helped put that together.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stanley. That was a partnership with United Way and for the community and with Whirlpool. So thank you for sharing that. Holly, I saw you take yourself off mute. Were you going to share something?
So I'm the same way. I hate silence, right? I'll fill the void. But thanks, Stanley. That was really kind. And And I just kind of want to build on what he had said, and that is, you know, this has been one of the toughest chapters our community has faced, but boy, have we faced it together. And how it hasn't been perfect, but I think people have shown up with the right hearts. Everybody involved in this work wants to help and are doing everything they can. And there's no one organization, one person, or one group that can bring us back. It's how we work together. And I think that is just a beautiful illustration of community. And even though it feels like it's never enough and never fast enough, because I know everybody involved in this work just is pushing hard, it's encouraging, you know, to see the real true fabric of our community in action.
Thank you.
Hey, Alicia, can I jump in? And I don't have a silver lining other than any opportunity to come home is always great for me. But I do want to clarify one thing. When I was talking to Stanley, I said that Judith was going to give him a call. It's actually Kimberly that's going to be calling him. So I just want to make sure that we clarify that so that when someone named Kimberly calls, he's not confused and say, hey, Dan said it was going to be Judith. It's actually Kimberly. So my apologies to Judith and to Kimberly and to Mr. Halpin for creating that confusion.
Thanks, Dan. And then one thing that I had wanted to share really quick, just aligns with this question. It's not an answer from me, but we at the Community Foundation have the disaster case management team that Nancy spoke a lot about last time. Just report out some of the beautiful things they're seeing, stories of resilience and stories of hope. And we've been shared with just some great stories. And so one I just wanted to share as we wrap up here. And this one is from the disaster case manager who's located specifically in Midland and supporting people within the city limits. And so she said that recently she spoke to a woman who shared some of the beginning moments of recovery journey. She shared that her college-age grandson had been coming out to assist her in cleaning all of the debris from the flood out of her home. Her grandson had been coming day after day, and one day she became concerned when a pack of 13 people started approaching her home. As it turned out, her grandson had sent a text in his group chat of friends asking if they'd be interested in helping muck out the home. The grandson was just as surprised as the homeowner that so many of his friends showed up for the next several days to support his grandmother's recovery. And I feel like that's just a beautiful display of not only community resilience, but also within our youth. I think that sometimes our youth can be overlooked and maybe not given the honor in which they really can show up for. So I just wanted to share that with everybody as kind of a key piece of a hopeful story. So with that, let's see. I wanted to remind everybody that continual connections or resource support through 211 is definitely something that will be and will continue to be available for people. In addition, the reliefmidland.org website is kept up to date with updates and support and press releases, so please make sure you're checking that. And then United Way has been active in getting out very targeted, brief press releases, specifically right now around FEMA and SBA, and just trying to make sure we're getting the word out to all of our hardest hit areas to have some frequently asked questions identified and answered. So those can all be found at the reliefmidland.org site as well. And then as closing, we are doing these meetings every other Thursday at 10:30. So the next meeting will be Thursday, September 17th. And we encourage all of you to come back and join in that conversation. In addition, share it with one friend and have them come as well. So with that, does anybody have any final comments, thoughts before we wrap up here?
I do. Again, sorry. I do want to say thank you to the Midland Area Community Foundation for having us on this call, to the long-term recovery group for the work that you're doing, and to recommit us, FEMA, to participating in these fora, or if you have another one that you want us to come to. I think you got the sense that I enjoy doing this. It's a great opportunity for me to talk about the work that I love doing and have been doing for so long. So if you have another meeting that you want FEMA to come to, or you think that we'd be helpful to share information, we are always happy to come in person. to participate in those, so long as we have to do it this way. So again, feel free to reach out anytime. If you visit the FEMA website and look for Region 5, you'll see my email and phone number there. There's a reason why they're up there. So if you have a question, give me a call. If I can't answer it, then I'll certainly pass you along to somebody that can. But feel free to reach out, let us know if you have questions, and let us know how we can continue to help.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks again to all three FEMA experts here that was on the line supporting today. And with that, we will sign off here, everybody. Oh, no, we will not. On.
I was just going to say short, well, I don't know how many volunteers are working with this project, but you guys and the volunteers doing a very good job, and go on with this and enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.